So I picked up this trio of candlesticks. They were really super unique. They were kind of like a faux wooden feel. They weren't really like super heavy, but they were some kind of cheap wood. So I scuffed them really quick. And right now I am adding 1 coat of what's called Savannah Mist. I know it's really hard to tell on the video, but it is like a light sky blue color. Very soft, very baby blue, country light blue. So I go ahead and going to add a base coat with that. And I'm going to do that to all 3 candlesticks. That way I can get the paint to just like start to stick. I always like when I blend to go ahead and put a base coat on first. It helps so that when we blend the second coats, that they go on so much more seamless. So just throw a quick coat of paint on there. I am using my Klingon brush, which is my favorite brush of all times. Now I'm using a chalk paint. You can use any kind of paint. Chalk paint, clay paint, but just make sure you're using a good quality one. Don't chimps on it. Just really buy the good quality paints. And I do retail all of the paint that I do use on all of my videos. So just throw a quick coat, and as you can tell, a really high quality paint goes on so well, right? And it doesn't take a lot to get it to just really adhere and just look good in just 1 coat. I mean, 1 coat, you're like, wow, this is fabulous. So this was, like I said, this was the coolest, uniquest. I bought these at the thrift store. I am a thrift store junkie. I am always shopping and looking for unique items. It just happens to be that there was a set of 3, which is even a bigger bonus, right? That they're all 3 there. So now I'm going to grab a different color paint. I'm going to grab a gray. And the gray that I am using is called Hurricane Gray. This is from Dixie Belle's line of paint, chalk mineral paint. And I'm just going to quickly put on the Hurricane Gray and get it to kind of go up the side of these candlesticks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blend the 2 colors together so they have a seamless meet in the middle, just so it gives it a little bit more dimension and a little better variety. I'm going to go grab a clean brush because I wanted to use a clean brush for the blue, because if I kept the gray brush, it would be like too muddled. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Savannah Mist down now. Now this is how you apply a second coat, right? I already did the first base coat. I'm going to bring it down and drop it into the Hurricane Gray, okay? And then, yeah, Debbie, put your cart closer. That way I have to keep walking back and forth, right? Work smarter, not harder. So we're going to go ahead and blend these guys together. A little bit of water. It was warm out this day. A little bit of water. And then I took a brush that had no paint on it. And what that brush did was allow me to blend the 2 colors together. What I'll do is wipe off the excess paint off this brush. And it's just going to blend one into the other and just kind of make it look like it goes from a darker to a lighter color. That's all I'm trying to do. Just give it a little bit of depth and dimension, more than it had when it was just plain. So we're just going to keep doing that. I'm going to take that brush. I'm never going to dip it into paint. So I've got 3 brushes going, right? I've got the one for the blue, the one for the gray, and then the one that I am just blending the 2 colors together. That brush will always be kept out of dipping in paint. It'll just be used on the piece to blend the colors together. This is a really good hint for you guys. When you're learning how to blend, just have one brush that doesn't have any paint and use it that way. Now, you're going to just wipe the paint off all the time on it. So then we're going to do the other 3. They'll all be ready. Bada bing, bada boom. And go ahead and do basically the same thing. This time I started on the top and I drug down my paint. Like I said, it's hard to tell that it's a light blue, but it is a light blue. It's not a white. It's just the color of my phone. And then you're going to drag the color up. And you know what? It's either Hurricane Gray or Gravel Road. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I think it might be. I don't know. Anyhow, it's gray. How's that? I could be right or it could be wrong. It's been a while since I did these, so I just can't remember. So I had this transfer. Here's the deal. The title of my video is What Happens When a Transfer Goes Wrong? Well, just remember, after you've painted something, try to wait a few hours before you apply a transfer, number one, because you want as much of the moisture out of the paint to apply the transfer. Number two, start applying the transfer. Now there is such a thing, and this transfer is a redesign with Prima Transfer. It did all adhere to the piece, but it was a flop. The transfer was a flop, and it did not adhere. The transfer it was awful. And I tell you, probably about 1 in every 100 transfers that I use, I'll get one that's a flop. I don't know what happens if it's in print or what happens to them for this to occur. Like I said, I've been retailing Prima redesign transfers for 7 years. I've probably had 2 of them come back for customers for this thing happening. So it's very few and far between, but it does happen, unfortunately. Luckily, it was only on a candlestick. And the thing is, you never know, like, if it's going to happen. You don't know. You have no clue until you go and you try to rub and you try to rub, and you're just like, what the heck? So this vase is curved. So I went ahead and cut the plastic so that I could curve it around the vase. The candlestick. It's not a vase. And I'm just rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, and I'm rubbing so much I shouldn't have to rub this much. I kept thinking to myself, what is going on with this transfer? Why is it not like sticking? Well, in a few minutes, you're going to see exactly why. The transfer itself, the color did not go to, it's stuck, most of it's stuck onto the plastic, which is not the norm. I've been doing transfers forever, and they usually will stick. But all I could say is sometimes it happens, and when it does happen, it's a pain, and you're like, what the heck? What did I do wrong? I can tell, though, by the way the transfer actually adhered when we get to that part, that it was the transfer's fault. It was nothing that I did, nothing that I could have done different. It just happens. Unfortunately, it happens. So it was a good lesson, and that's why I wanted to do this video, because I wanted to show people that sometimes when something bad happens, you can fix it. You just got to pivot and not panic. And it's happened to me on a piece of furniture before. So when that does happen, you just kind of have to pivot, okay? It's about pivoting and not panicking. I was trying to rub and rub, but what you're going to see in a couple seconds is that the red part of the transfer did not transfer. This is a transfer that didn't transfer. So something to do with the printing process, however they print these things. Look at that. So that's what happened. The red part stayed on. No matter how much I rubbed, it wouldn't come off. So it was a flop of a transfer, okay? It stuck, but the actual color didn't come off. So I'm going to throw that transfer away because I don't want to make that same mistake again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pivot. We don't have a choice, right? We're just going to sand it with a piece of 150 sandpaper really quickly just to get the bumps down. And we're just going to paint over the top of it. No big deal. I am not kidding you. No big deal. So sand it so that you cannot really see the transfer, so then it is smooth. And then just paint over the top. So we're just going to take the blue paint and the gray paint, and see that? It just was a flop. It wasn't anything I did. The color just wouldn't transfer. The transfer wouldn't transfer. It was a non-transferable transfer. So a little bit of blue, a little bit of gray, boom, bada boom. Nobody's any of the wiser. Let it dry. Do it all over. Unfortunately, if you have to do this on a big piece of furniture, you're going to be a little more mad. But you know what? Stuff happens, and unfortunately, that's life, right? Pivot. Always pivot. So we'll paint that one over. We'll let her dry. We're going to grab a different transfer. I have a bunch of transfer remnants that I keep for all my transfers that I do. And so I will grab a different one altogether, which actually, in hindsight, looks way better on the Candlesticks than the original one I picked. Can you tell where the transfer was? Nope. See? Don't panic. Just pivot. It happens, and we will all get beyond it. Isn't it pretty how the gray meets the blue, and it just looks so pretty? And I'm sorry if it's Hurricane Gray or Gravel Road. They're just really close in color. So put those to the side. Now, we're going to go ahead and do a different transfer. I'm not going to give up because I know that was just a flop. And normally that doesn't happen. Normally it doesn't happen at all. So the little piece came off and it got cut. So I'm going to put the transfer on. I'm going to do the same thing I did. But I will tell you, this one didn't take half the amount of time to get it to come off because it came off with no problem. Now, when we're going around a curved surface like this, you can cut the plastic to get it to kind of bend like I'm going to do. I'm going to cut off the excess, and I'm cutting that flower because you know what? Nobody's going to see it. I want it to be able to bend. If not, the plastic that the transfer's on will not bend around your piece. It's kind of a pain, but you've got to work with it. Don't be afraid to cut it. You can always put a little bit of white or pink paint for that rose and get it to just cover in the hole. If there is a gap of any type, nobody will ever see it. I'm not kidding. This one worked really, really, really well. It worked within a matter of minutes. It didn't take me a half an hour like the last one. It's a huge difference when they stick like they're supposed to. If they do it like they're supposed to, you shouldn't have to rub your arm off to get them to work, right? That's the whole thing. They shouldn't be that hard. So where I cut it, I'm going to go ahead and now get that adhered down. It's just if you cut a little slit in that paper, it really helps so that you can move and maneuver it and it will go around, right? It's curved. It's got a round edge. It's kind of got a belly that goes around it. It's just perfect. So right there, you can see where it's cut straight across. Well, I have that piece, so I'm going to piece it on there. Even if I didn't have the piece that went there, I would just take another flower and stick it on there because you don't want it to be like this severe drop off because, like I said, these transfers are ones I've used on other pieces, and so these are just the remnants of them. And that way, see how much easier this transfer was? And it actually stuck, and it looks so pretty. Do not pull your transfers off like Band-Aids. Please pull them off very slow and be very deliberate with them because if they don't stick, you need to put the plastic back down and do it again. You need to take a burnishing pad or finishing pad and actually rub the transfer to make sure that it's really, really well adhered. Now I'm going to take that little tidbit piece that I had that was cut off. Luckily I had it. And add it. But if I didn't have it, I would have just taken a little tiny flower from something and stuck it on there. You can't even see, right? No line, no nothing. So make sure you burnish them. Okay, you guys, like and subscribe.